In the aftermath of the devastating 2011 earthquake and tsunami, Japan faced another monumental challenge, the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. Now, 12 years later, a controversial plan has emerged: the release of treated radioactive water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean. This decision has generated both support and concern from various stakeholders. Let's delve deeper into this complex issue. Recently, Japan's nuclear regulator granted approval for Tokyo Electric Power Company, better known as TEPCO, the utility company responsible for operating the destroyed Fukushima plant, to release over 1 million tons of radioactive water. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, a global watchdog, conducted a 2-year review and concluded that Japan's release plan would have a negligible environmental impact. However, despite the United Nations nuclear watchdog's approval, neighboring countries and local fishermen who still bear the scars of 2011 disaster remain rattled and skeptical. China, in particular, has cast doubt on IAEA's findings, questioning the legality and the legitimacy of the Fukushima wastewater release. To understand the need for such a release, let's go back to Fukushima disaster itself. The earthquake and tsunami severely damaged the power supply and cooling systems of the nuclear plant, resulting in reactor core overheating and contamination of water within the facility with highly radioactive materials. Since then, additional water has been pumped into the reactors to cool the fuel debris. However, ground and rainwater have seeped into the facility, exacerbating the problem and generating more radioactive wastewater. This wastewater, now amounting to 1.32 million metric tons, equivalent to over 500 Olympic pools, has been stored in massive tanks constructed by Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, the state-owned electricity firm. As space for these tanks rapidly diminishes, TEPCO argues that building more is not a viable option. The company needs to free up space in order to safely decommission the Fukushima plant, a process that involves decontaminating facilities, dismantling structures, and fully shutting down operations. TEPCO acknowledges that radioactive wastewater contains some dangerous elements. However, they maintain that the majority of these elements can be removed through the treatment process. The real challenge lies in a hydrogen isotope called radioactive tritium, which cannot currently be eliminated due to the lack of available technology. Japan's government and the IAEA assert that the contaminated water will be highly diluted and gradually released over the course of several decades. They argue that the concentration of tritium released would be on par with or lower than levels allowed by other countries, meeting international safety and environmental regulations. Furthermore, they contend that tritium occurs naturally in the environment, even in rain, seawater, tap water, and the human body, suggesting that small amounts released into the ocean should pose no significant harm. However, experts caution against the premature release of the diluted wastewater. They express concerns that dilution may not sufficiently reduce its impact on marine life. Pollutants like tritium can permeate various levels of the food chain, leading to bioaccumulation in plants, animals, and bacteria within the marine ecosystem. To illustrate this point, a study conducted in 2012 found evidence that bluefin tuna transported radionuclides from the Fukushima across the Pacific Ocean to California. So, how will the water be released? According to TEPCO, the wastewater will undergo treatment to filter out all removable harmful elements. The water will then be stored in tanks and analyzed to assess its remaining radioactivity. Much of it will undergo a second round of treatment. Ultimately, the diluted water will be released through an undersea tunnel off the coast, flowing into the Pacific Ocean. To ensure transparency and accountability, third parties, including the IAEA, will monitor the discharge throughout and after its release. It is worth noting that many countries with nuclear plants routinely and safely release treated wastewater containing low levels of tritium. Bodies like the IAEA highlight this fact and emphasize that strict regulations and monitoring are in place to ensure the safety of such releases. Nevertheless, public opinion remains divided. Skepticism abounds among residents in the region, leading some shoppers to stock up on seafood and sea salt amid fears of contamination from the wastewater release. In Fukushima, the prefecture where the disaster occurred, local fishermen have been vocal opponents of the plan from the beginning. After the meltdown, fishing operations were suspended and import restrictions were imposed by other countries. As Japan prepares for the controversial release of treated radioactive water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, the delicate balance between the need for space and concerns over potential environmental impacts loom large. The journey ahead holds both hope and uncertainty as the world watches closely to see how this unprecedented step will unfold.